Yeah?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I rode it here on the way to work, and I didn't want to come to work. I wanted to keep riding. But e-bikes, e-transportation, it's the future.
I think so. I think so. So is this a true e-bike or a pedal assist or?
It's an electric bike with pedal assist. All that.
All that. Did you get it here in town? Did you get it from the office or?
No, I purchased it online
Okay.
from the manufacturer in Quebec.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I should have talked to Travis first. How to get it done.
Well, I've heard different things depending on where the battery is. It changes how the bike operates or something. I don't know anything about it.
Well, yes.
But they look I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, mine gets up to 32 kilometers.
I was going to say, you go pretty fast down there.
Yeah. And you can travel 80 to 90 kilometers before charging.
You get what, sorry?
80 kilometers
Oh, wow.
before charging.
That'll easily get you around Merritt a few times.
Yeah.
Yes, and with just e-transportation, the technology is now comparable to, if you will, gas guzzlers.
Right.
Traditional engines, where they're just as powerful, they're able to travel the same distance. And now that we've entered that realm of competitiveness, I mean, it just makes sense that there will be a transition. I mean, so long as we can
It's like one of those.
figure out the mineral situation
So,
for the
yeah.
battery.
I'm gonna pay money to get the video of that. 14 years ago.
And
Protein.
the tech test, I guess, is absolutely more.
Yeah, I just turned on the news at lunchtime that we can mine the minerals, but we can't process them here. They all have to go to
But
China.
I guess he does.
All but one place is in China. So I don't know how that.
Well, it's horrible. I think this international political economy that we are governed by. Well, if you, the world started transitioning after the 80s into this more global economy, and nations lost their sovereignty. And we feel the impacts of it when there is some sort of crisis, for example, with COVID, vaccine production, whether it was overseas. That's something that should be national, something that should be in our borders. But we find out many different industries. I think it's just a matter of time where we kind of go back to nationalistic thinking to save countries. Because
There we go. Wrong meeting. Right meeting, but wrong group.
This is a producer share. I mean, I don't know. I don't pretend to know how that all works, but yeah, we can't have it.
No, and I'll just follow you.
In an economy and a political structure that is sort of opposed to our
There we go.
And that is what
Oh, right, so that doesn't work.
it's very dangerous actually. We don't even look at our data.
You better
It's
hear
out
down here, because I can.
overseas.
It's
so insane.
Yeah, I'm good.
When I was still working full-time for the school district and involved in the tech fund. How there were so many things we couldn't take advantage of because we started school.
There we are.
And I think you have.
It wasn't until we actually got servers in I want to say 5 years ago, like it's been so recent that we've actually been able to store data online and not have to have, you know,
Sure.
big laptops where
You've
you.
got our name tag.
Yeah, well, we weren't allowed.
They're just upstairs, I'm gonna go get them.
It's
Okay.
the data was not kept under Canada's rules, we couldn't store them. So,
Oh, I
Yeah, it's a
think
big thing.
tabs.
Yeah.
And we have
Yeah, there's that
information
enough of it sticking out to.
third world countries. And I mean, that's a danger because the competition level is very high. And I think when we look at these scams called scam centers, where do they originate?
yeah.
So it's susceptible to a danger that it might not be in our own borders,
Yeah.
within our own borders. Until everyone is on equal playing field.
Right.
But how do we get there?
So how we.
We have been here for 2 months,
Very
eh?
good. No, I missed one, well, yeah, then I missed July, so.
Oh, you did, so
Yeah,
it's been a
yeah,
little
I-
while.
Oh, good, but good thing I got the minutes, so I know what was.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
going
yeah.
on.
Oh, okay, that, yeah.
The old middle school campus. so it's been
But
4
you're
months. For
losing
me,
it
it's a
here.
long time.
That is a
So
long
where are you
time.
gonna go now? Nobody knows.
I think they're only
To
two
buy-
family
they'll have to
members
buy their
here,
board
Sandy
office.
and,
Yeah,
Ava.
yeah, that
Oh,
would be
dear.
our different options, leasing.
Well,
and
summer's a busy
purchasing.
That's okay, we were talking enough for everybody.
Oh, good.
Properties here.
Okay,
Not a
I'll
lot
let
of
you
commercial
decide.
options.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
No, there aren't, we know that. Hi, John.
Yeah, that
We know
counts.
that firsthand, that's for sure. So you coordinate services for people who bought this land in your home, is that?
Yeah,
like,
seniors.
This is your job,
Yes.
that's what you do, that's
No, it's
Are you
great.
finding it easy in there, hard in there? Do we have enough services? What do we need that we don't have? John's here to talk about NDIT's role, I'm assuming.
I think there's a bunch of questions on
You're
Mark.
under 4.1,
That's right.
that's you.
Although he deserves number one.
Yeah.
Well, he's 4.1, there is a 1 in there.
Hey, Mayor.
Sorry, I'm late today. Oh, that's okay, I can't read that screen. I'm in the middle of one.
Hi.
So do you coordinate like housekeeping services and all that kind of stuff for people?
Do we know
to stay in Travis?
We have 3 services, so housekeeping,
Councilor
yard work,
I
and
don't know, I'm not supposed
And what was the third one?
Is Ava coming?
Oh,
yeah.
Ava? Is she coming?
Somebody.
Maybe Linda,
I think
no,
she-
you're looking for snow
I
angels.
think she sent a thing saying I'll be there.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, I see. So,
So there's some, so this is subsidized.
so the homeowners are subsidized for the contract, like how does that work?
So
Linda?
United
Yes.
Way.
Have you heard from Travis?
Administers the funding.
I have not.
Okay.
So,
No, I have not.
and,
Okay,
based on the senior's income level.
okay, that determines what they pay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
If there's also, sometimes they're.
Oh, you're nice.
Would you have the same people contracting so when you provide you?
Hi, Sean.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, thank you.
We have 3 separate contractors for each.
Okay.
The NDIT is really big on distance.
I think Linda was.
That's my fault, I'm trying to spread everybody out.
We're just good listeners.
You call him Travis.
Email it later.
Hi, Don.
Changes things a little.
There we go.
It's the city that's not really keen on distance.
Don't rat us out, everyone.
Okay, well, we should start the call to order for the Age Friendly and Accessibility Committee on Monday, September 27th, 2021. I need a mover and a seconder. I guess we only have a mover and a seconder for the Age Friendly minutes held on July 26th, 2021.
Okay, all right.
And second?
I will.
Okay, Susan? And any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there staff updates? Mr. Smith?
Nothing that won't come forward through the body of the meeting, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. And this isn't an update, but I wanted to ask Amanda at some point for an update on, a little bit of an update on your snow removal program. Okay. So you're on then, and we'll move to new business. And 4.1 is the Nickel Valley Institute of Technology Partnership Opportunities.
Okay. So on behalf of the Mayor Age Friendly and Accessibility Committee, I'd like to welcome our special guests. Joining us today are Ken Turand, President of NVIT, and Dr. John Chenoweth, ABP Academics, is in charge of trades programs at NVIT. welcome Ken and John to our committee. We're excited and honored. Am I supposed to put this on?
If you would, just the people
Oh, yeah,
online.
sorry.
There.
That's
Yeah.
my
I
fault.
wasn't even paying attention.
Yes, can anybody hear me?
They can now.
Okay. So it's great talking to you in July about the ways that NVIT might assist our elderly population to remain in their homes. We're greatly encouraged by your positive result polls. So I had approached UCAN to discuss a possible partnership with NVIT to work with the trade students to do some necessary repairs for a smaller fee, making it affordable for our elders. This would give the students some experience in dealing with the people in merit who probably would be hiring them once they gain full certification in their chosen trade. So aging in place, for those that weren't aware of what we were talking about, many seniors have been living in the same home for decades. While they were working and physically able to do so, they were capable of doing necessary repairs, but things are different now. Their needs may have changed because of injury, illness, or age-related infirmities. We've noticed considerable reluctance to go into senior homes, especially now with COVID. They're scared. They're really scared to go out somewhere else. They feel safer in their own neighborhoods with people who've known them for many years. So, you would find people not so quick to go into something smaller. They're happy where they are. So we realize there's many things for us to talk about. It may take some time, depending on the curriculum and requirements of the course. We're pleased to have, pardon me?
Over here. Can I have you put the mic closer to your, yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
almost finished.
Sorry.
So we're pleased to have you and John here to discuss his future possibilities so we can have a plan in place once your next round of construction students are ready for the challenge. This would be an excellent example of community working together for the benefit of our most vulnerable members. Again, welcome, Ken and John. Glad to see you here.
Now, is there any discussion or questions for, Ken, are you going to?
No, John, yes.
I just want to say thank you very much for the introduction and the welcome to the meeting.
So, Judy, what are we doing with this? Are we asking NVIT to?
Well, we were hoping that we would start a dialogue with them around what the program's needs are, and I know you've done this before in other areas, like with the Native folks. So just wondering if we could put that over to HREM and.
Sure, I'll give you maybe a summary of what we do in our carpentry programs.
Okay.
So it's a 24-week program whereby students who have zero to a little experience in the Red Seal trade of carpentry, in those 24 weeks, they learn the introduction to framing, stair building, concrete, roofing. Those are the main things they do. And we don't necessarily build a home like Telauka within our 24 weeks, although we could. We generally look for projects to do that involve those things that I just mentioned. Typically, some elders might want a shed or a smokehouse or a new deck and a ramp for a wheelchair. So they get a lot of requests from our communities, the 5 bands, but we've also done a couple projects in town too for some seniors. We have done that.
Oh, you have?
Yep, a ramp, 2 ramps and 2 decks for 2 seniors that they just approached us and said, hey, we've got a project to do. Our instructor went down and looked at it after class one day and said, yes, this would fit the curriculum because it has to fit with framing and of course any kind of deck work like that would.
Yeah.
And the students went down and poured they built the deck proper to code with concrete not blocks, but concrete forms, the tubing, and built the deck off of it. And they've done that for 2 seniors in Merritt. They've also built the little cover up the hospital at the community gardens. Our students built that shelter because it fits within the curriculum. That said, we only offer the program every 18 months. Now, we just don't have the numbers to run it continually, like every 6 months, otherwise we'd have a little army of project workers.
How many people are in at a time?
Anywhere from 5 to 10,
Okay.
so not a whole lot. High school kids, some dual credit, but we do understand that there's a big need within the Native communities around housing. So we're hoping that that sparks a lot more interest in the trade, as well as a need to offer it every 6 months, perhaps, maybe twice a year. But we're not there yet. Now, that said, as long as any kind of project would fit the curriculum, we're more than happy to do that. But the instructor makes a call on what kind of projects they have. I know some people have said, can you build me cupboards? Well, cabinet making's in like 3rd year, so our students aren't even close to being ready for that. But they can frame in like rough exteriors, things like that. They're brand new at it. So ramps, decks, sheds, they're right up their alley. And a lot of concrete work. They're really good at doing sidewalks and stairs and stuff. So.
Good.
But we'd be more than happy to work with the committee around supporting seniors. In fact, most of the work we do on reserves is with seniors. So, yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Do you have any other programs like electrical or plumbing or anything?
Oh yeah,
like
we
that?
have pre-apprenticeship electrical foundation, plumbing and piping, welding and automotive and culinary arts.
Great. Have you ever done anything like that with that group?
No, they might visit more industrial sites to look at what they're doing with their electrical and or plumbing. Welding might, they might visit a mill, but for the most part on those, they're in their lab working on specific projects.
Okay.
Like for electrical, we have a mock house inside of our shop where the students have to wire the whole house, then they take it apart. And for the plumbers would go in and wire or plumb a sink, a tub, a toilet, you name it, and then they take it apart. So, but they don't go into people's homes and change their toilets out with new wax and stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, we haven't gone there yet. I don't know if our instructors would, because we've never asked them. They've never been asked. So.
Is that maybe something we could think about in the future?
Yeah, we definitely put it to the instructors, but for the most part, like if there's say 10 students doing plumbing, each one of them will install a toilet, and right from the water source to the toilet, the wax ring and everything, and if it doesn't leak, you pass. I don't know.
You just want a high quality throne.
Yeah.
Yay for you!
I don't know if you want students coming in and installing your toilet in your house,
No.
right? So, because they're just beginning, so.
Right.
Yeah. Electrical too, I mean, our instructors are Red Seal electricians, plumbers, pipe fitting, but they have to oversee everything. But with carpentry, it's a little easier because they're right there with them, hands on it. We just haven't explored that at all with the other foundational trades.
Is there a cost associated with that for the students?
Yeah, anytime we do any project for anyone, they supply the materials and we supply the free labor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Any other questions for either of the presenters or from Judy?
I'm sure I'll think of a million after.
I'm getting off easy. Just here to look good, I guess. Although when John starts talking about what's going on in the trades, that gets me a little bit more into. You have a name for him. But anyway, yes, we're very excited about that, and we, I would say, so I've been with MBIT a long time, and so our relationship with the city kind of goes like this. And so lately I'm excited about it. I've met with Stephanie Moore. I've got a meeting coming up with Sean coming up. So, and of course right now, probably our number one contact is Sky, and he's just kind of my go-to guy regardless of what's going on. I just contact him. Whether it's a bus issue or anything else, a fire truck issue, anyway. And of course, the I've got a good relationship with the fire chief as well, and he knows that they are welcome on campus to bring up any new trainees or anything at any time. So, yeah, so it's good. MBIT is, of course, an important player in the city of Merritt, and we appreciate our ability to be there. So, yeah, for sure.
Ken, what is it going to take to bring Red Seal? Or John, whichever one.
Like all 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's a challenge for us just because we don't have the numbers. Most of those places, so those Red Seal ones, when you're coming back for year 2, 3, and 4, they come for how many weeks is it, John?
10 weeks.
Yeah, it's only 10 weeks and not 24. So normally what happens is you have, 2 or 3 electrical first year, and then those students start coming back, and we just don't have the numbers to do that. So generally they go to TRU, Okanagan College, or BCIT to finish that second, third, and fourth year.
And is TRU and Okanagan College full enough that we can draw from them? I'm just thinking someday, hopefully someday very soon, well, that day is probably here, we don't have enough construction workers in the city. And we are looking at this boom that contractors are saying they just can't get things done, they can't find certain trades. And it's really a problem. If we can train them here, yay.
I know that numbers and trades go up and down, and the ITA will fund based on the demand in the marketplace. They'll fund schools. That said, I mean, if we need more skilled trades locally, our students also have a tough time getting picked up as apprentices, and that doesn't help either. So they're leaving town to go get their hours and move on. So
what can we do to help that?
Well, the ITA and the province are already making it mandatory that there's 5 core trades that, if you hire in a big provincial job, you have to be an apprentice, right? So it is changing within the system, and I think you'll see a lot more young people taking on trades as a career opportunity, because it's a great career.
But we have access to the contractors and the developers and people who need these trades. Is there anything we can do to, I should be asking our CIO that question.
You probably just need to say, are your contractors, do they have apprentices working with them? Right? And if so, if they're coming from out of town, chances are the apprentices are coming from out of town as well. And that's a tough one, because even when we get a building built, we can't tell them who they need to hire, right? So
the one thing we do is work with the school district.
Yeah.
And so grade 11 and 12, they're actually, we align our program start dates with the semester dates. So students in the grade 11 and 12 year can actually take first year trades as part of their grade 12 requirements. And we've got a number of students that have done that over the years. It's been very successful. Again, we love more, right? It's just figuring out how to promote it and how to get students into that. I mean, you're still dealing with the stigma of trades being less than. I mean, when you look at the salaries of some of those trades.
Oh, definitely.
They're not making less than.
Yeah. And you're varying all the time.
The student coming up with a degree, the carpenter's making more money. So, yeah. So it's
Is that through the ACIT program?
sorry?
Is that through the ACIT program?
Yeah, it used to be called the ACIT program, a dual credit. Like, for example, we're running automotive right now, right at MSS. And there's high school kids as well as adults doing automotive service technician right now. And our welding program that's running right now up at MBIT, a majority of the students are high school kids.
Wow.
Did COVID affect that? Because I spoke to a young person who said that, last year, they didn't have any programs in their high schools that they could be working.
Yeah, it did.
It did?
Well, it did, yeah, especially for, like, say, March 2020, when we should have been starting some new trades, our numbers really diminished to a point where we just couldn't offer. Yeah.
We got to get rid of COVID.
Yeah, we're hoping that, continued relationship with the school district. We're meeting with a lot of industry partners, such as like electrical union, welding unions, construction unions, and they want to work with us and put graduates straight into their employment as apprentices within the union. So There's a lot of opportunity to go on. As you all know, we were started, I think just before you started here, Ken, but 83 with the 5 bands. So our big mandate right now is trying to build capacity in Indigenous communities across the province. That's why our Bridging the Trades trailers travel all over the province and introduce trades. We're using one of the trailers right now for the welding program. That might be something if you want to come have a look at that trailer. It's pretty spectacular.
I'd love to.
To see what they're doing in that program. But as far as our trades moving forward, we do have a meeting, I think tomorrow, with BC Housing just to look at what's going on, say in places like Lytton that had that devastating fire, our communities that have a huge gap in housing, and what can we do? What can our role be there as a training provider? So.
How do you get the word out to people that all this is available? Like just through the unions or?
You mean for working or for training?
For students that want to get into the trades, how do you get the word out? Is it,
It's all, basically it's all social media.
Yeah, for the most part, social.
We got young kids there that are reaching out to the young kids.
Yeah.
That's old people don't even know how that stuff.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we
Yeah,
use our mics?
hire the young kids that know how to reach out to the young kids. Yeah.
Just as a reminder, this is a public meeting and are we taping this? It is a committee meeting.
Yeah.
And so we have to have the speakers speak to the mic, so just push the red button on and I'll connect you at this end.
Yeah, sorry.
So you get your voice on.
And anytime we can set up a situation where our young students can give back to any community is a positive means forward. And so, like building that shelter at the community garden, those decks with those senior citizens in town, the sheds in reserve, those are all very positive things that our students can do. And we want to make sure that the student understand that not only are you gaining skill, you're learning how to support your own community all the time. It's an important lesson.
Now, the other thing we've done a women in trades and stuff like that, which is again, it's more like an introductory to all the different trades. And again, very popular, very effective. We had a great crew that came in and took that program. And again, it's like 10 weeks or 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
To do that, so.
Don MacArthur, our planner, can I just ask you, I'm putting you on the spot, just to give an idea of what we could use in the city currently?
In terms of trades for the construction industry?
Yes.
Yeah, most trades. So I know on projects this year, there's been a shortage of drywallers. There's been issues with plumbing, getting plumbers, especially when large projects are using those for people that want to do renovations. They've had a shortage there. Even the company that was doing flashing and things like that, the person that was running that had stepped down, and unfortunately the family that took it over wasn't able to continue it because they were so busy with their own trades. So there's a number of different types of trades, everything from plumbing to electrical to carpenters to drywallers, roofers. It really sort of cuts across the spectrum of the building trades. So yeah, and certainly staff could put together a list. If we, the next meeting, we meet with builders and developers, we could probably put together a pretty comprehensive list of what is most at need. So
that would be helpful. Thank you. Councillor Bainbridge.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if this question should be directed at Sean or Don. Mr. Chenoweth mentioned that, Dr. Chenoweth mentioned that the graduates are having a difficult time finding apprenticeship roles. When we hire for SEED projects, can we request that the developer have some sort of apprenticeship program and have apprentices on the project? Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I don't mind answering. I'm not going to say it's impossible,
but it is complicated. As John said earlier, when you hire someone, you generally hire a firm, and you can, through the request for proposals process, set out a scoring mechanism that could include things like, are you hiring local trades? Do you have apprentices? So I'm not saying that there couldn't be. There's a mechanism there that you could probably allocate a small portion of the overall score for any given firm to some considerations like that. But it's even if you do that, it's not necessarily going to be the case that the ones who have that are still going to come out better. There's other considerations that, generally speaking, do end up being important, and price is probably the primary one, price, design, and others. So the answer is yes, there is a mechanism, but if you actually are requiring it or enforcing it, that's probably not as easy. You can loosely incentivize it through the procurement process, so that all things held equal, people who do that might be selected, but they're still going to need to be competitive in other ways. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but it's timely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I support that, Sean. It's extremely challenging, especially trying to a larger project where you're bringing in firms from Kelowna or Kamloops. You know, we're just lucky if the sub trades are actually even putting in a bid. Like it's that challenging. So yeah, like Sean said, it's nice to put in and then add in, and it's also nice to just send a message that we want to support apprenticeship in the youth and that kind of thing. But very rarely will it become a criteria, just because otherwise you won't get the trade. So
yeah,
you also don't want to delay the project because you're trying to find that firm.
As Ken said, it depends on the size of the project, but generally speaking, on a larger project, you're hiring only the prime contractor, and they're bringing on the subs as part of their subcontractors as part of that proposal. And generally speaking, it would be the subcontractors that are bringing on apprentices. So we have the ability to really review the prime contractor. So it's there's some tangled web, but I think that, as John indicated earlier, there's other mechanisms to encourage and incentivize taking on apprentices, and I'm glad to see that it sounds like there are changes being made from that angle to make these better opportunities. So
we also have ITA has apprenticeship advisors scattered throughout the province, and we're not alone in that. A lot of schools have students graduate with the foundation, and they sit at home going, geez, what am I doing now? And so holding someone's hand saying, have you checked at Jobs BC, or have you checked at the ASET, or have you checked on the newspaper, things like that. A lot of young people are either go-getters and they're going to go find it, or they're going to wait for someone to help them. And we're not there yet in terms of supporting students fully to employment, but we're getting better and better and better. And around the requirement to have apprentices on large provincial projects, now it's the law of the land, and that'll filter its way through the rest of the province, because there is such a need for tradespeople. And I know what they call it, the white wave. The people are retiring. It's happening just as quick in trades. So if we don't source tradespeople from every corner of the province, we're going to have a lot of immigrants come in to do trades. So, and I know that with our mandate for Indigenous Ed, we're saying look to every Indigenous community in the province right now, because there's tradespeople waiting to be trained. So, and the same goes for merit. I know at the high school, both here and in Princeton, we're really trying to beef up the way we look at trades and support trades in our school, in our schools there, and we're part of that role at NVIT by having such a relationship with our both high schools and the trades. So,
when you did the Women in Trades, did you have very many people in it, and did any of them complete it?
Yeah, we had 12 females do the Women in Trades. About half joined other foundation programs right away, and TRU paid their tuition, which was nice. So some came with us into carpentry, one went into welding, and some went to TRU into heavy duty equipment. Yes, very successful.
Very good. I want to do it again.
Any other questions for our guests?
I do. Next time we offer carpentry, who do I contact about the age-friendly and accessibility?
Well, I hear Sky is the person. Our CAO.
Okay, that's good to know, thanks.
Yeah, one last comment. We're actually in the process of hiring a new dean of trades. So right now, John does it off of a very small corner of his desk. We're actually going to be hiring a dean of trades who will then be able to take that and run with it, look at offering more trades programs and figuring out how to get that out a little bit more. So we're excited about that. Hopefully, that person will be hired shortly.
Smith.
Your Worship, hopefully you don't mind the intrusion as well, because I'm recognizing there's a specific context to this discussion, but seeing as it has taken on a bit of a broader lens here, and when we do have developers or prospective developers, particularly larger industry that's looking at merit, are you comfortable with us kind of sending them your way to discuss what their needs are going to be and some of the opportunities that they would be looking for? Because lots of the times these groups and organizations that we talk to have a 3, 4, 5 year lead time, and if they know they're coming and there's some form of commitment they're coming, they're often wanting to look, can we start building the workforce up now to be able to support that? So
yeah, for sure. We've done that before. We're actually, you come up, took a tour, and we had a small little meeting at the MBAT boardroom with potential developers and stuff. So we're happy to do that. You just got to reach out, let us know when it is. And, we're happy to host a small meeting and give everyone a tour.
perfect.
And we've also, I don't think it was maybe last week, we had a meeting with your tourism people, which was very interesting. I really like the way you guys are doing some stuff. So we want to know what role can we play to support that movement within the city and vice versa.
I know that the city will support in any way we can to help move NVIT to where it needs to be or where it wants to go. So we are more than there for you. If you need a letter of support in any way whatsoever, feel free to come and ask us. We'll provide one.
Just maybe side note on that too. We're the smallest public post-secondary in the province, but the city of Merritt has a public post-secondary school. And that's not a lot of towns as small as us can say that. And that's something to definitely take advantage of.
We do take advantage of it once in a while. So thank you very much for coming. You're welcome to stay, but I know you've also got busy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank
you very much, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Really enjoyed your presentation.
Thanks. We'll move to 4.2, Public Service Directory, and Ms. Brick. You're going to provide an update for us?
Thank you, Worship. Yes. So I have been working with the Interior Community Services, and we have been moving forward on compiling the Public Service Directory. So thank you to the committee for all of the work that they did in gathering the information, verifying phone numbers, addresses for all of the different components of this. We are moving into the final steps of putting it all together. I've also had a chance to meet with 2 members of the committee here in a subcommittee. We met with Jenna Heffernan and Eva Dean, and we went through the checklist, the Aging in Place checklist, with an intention to incorporate that into the Public Service Directory, so that at the front of the book or at the back of the book you would be able to have an Aging in Place checklist, and then referring you to different service providers that can help assist with different needs that you would need when you're aging in place and renovating your home or updating the home so that you can stay in place longer. Unfortunately, we have heard back in regards to the grant that we had requested, or that we had submitted for the printing to the director, and we were not successful on that one, which is unfortunate, but I have been told there is another grant that may be available in the future that we're going to be applying to as well, so we're not going to give up on that piece of it, for the printing of it. We will make sure that we move forward with creating an online version, which we can distribute through our website.
Any questions for Ms. Brick? Councilor Pangu?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if we discussed this at the previous meeting. Is there an opportunity to work with the Mayor Herald and perhaps fund this project through advertising, so instead of a grant?
We certainly can look into other options for funding of the printing. We did get a quote from the Merritt Herald, and it was the Merritt Herald that we had, we sought out 2 quotes, and the Merritt Herald was the one that we had selected to do the printing for us. So we have been working with them, and we've got a relationship established with them already. That said, they also do provide their own annual Golden Years brochure that they provide out, and they have advertisers through that. So we would need to talk with them to see what we could do there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. 4.3, action plan review, and Mr. Smith. Review number 5, right?
Thank you, Your Worship. Let me just zoom in on this a little bit for you. So continuing through the action plan, some of these categories had more done than others, but this is one of the ones where I'm still not on the mic, Your Worship. No trouble at all. This is one of the categories where I'd say that very few of these have had any steps taken on them. And a lot of these ones are very community oriented. It may not actually be the city that's taking the lead on it, but would just assist in getting it set up. So we'll talk about each one of them in turn. The first is develop and implement volunteer programming such as good morning calls or friendly visitor living alone safety programs as safety and support to seniors at risk of social isolation. I've heard this a number of times and how important this would be and this service could be for folks, but I've looked at this a few times and said I'm not 100% sure what the role of the city would necessarily be in relation to these calls, other than, again, working to try and facilitate with other volunteer groups in order to implement a service like that. So I'll defer to the committee for comments or discussions.
Just in regards to the good morning calls or friendly visitors, so it is something that does come under the umbrella of services for Better at Home. It hasn't rolled out yet in our program here at Merritt. There's been some challenges with, I guess, gathering volunteers that are interested in doing that. So we were hopeful that maybe this fall would start and we would get more volunteer interest, and it's not really the case at the moment. As soon as we can gather some interested volunteers, we'd absolutely be wanting to try and roll out that type of.
Can we help amplify your voice on that?
Absolutely.
If what we did is maybe we could put a spot on our city page for an ad like this, where it would still be your organization having it there, but we can just give you a little bit of a spot to try increasing the reach. Because it sounds like, I mean, if the program is already something that could be implemented and it's just a matter of volunteers, I would love to see if we can use our reach on social media and elsewhere to try and get into a few more people. And perhaps this committee would be able to, now that they know of that opportunity, would be able to spread the word as well.
Mm-hmm. And
what I was thinking is the senior center. You know, they phone each other now to remind people about meetings. So, you know, excuse me, maybe they would like to get involved too, and since the city supports them. in many ways, you know, we might be able to put a little pressure on them.
Jim?
Again, we have seniors in our churches and our places of worship that I'm sure we could find volunteers there too.
My thoughts went there as well. Councillor Bengu?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if it was a staffer that mentioned this or a councillor or where this idea was coming from. A volunteer database. Perhaps if we were to organize a database of volunteers that these different organizations can reach out to. I know the nonprofits across our community are having issues with volunteers. Some have shut down because of a lack of volunteers. Thank you.
A lot of the reason why there's been less and less volunteers is because many of them are older and they're worried about COVID, and so they're not getting out there like they were getting out there. It's hit every organization that I've been part of. Maybe when COVID's over and they're not so much afraid, they will come back out and start volunteering again.
Thank you. Judy, you touched on something vital, which is the younger demographics don't appear to be volunteering. And again, just speaking with the different organizations in the community, I wonder if, from a city's point of view, we can somehow create messages that attempt to encourage the younger demographics to volunteer. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Judy, I was just going to say that in this time of COVID, I think this is a wonderful way that some of our seniors who want to volunteer can volunteer from home, right? So they might be willing to do something like this.
We could market it that way too.
They're volunteer from home.
Yeah.
So taking all of this in, I think that what we can do is maybe we can assist with putting together a little bit of an advertisement for this, and I'll offer up some communication resources there, and we can get an ad out. We'll share it amongst this group as well, so you can share it through whatever channels you have, whether it be churches, senior center, and get the word out that we're looking for volunteers through the Better at Home program, and we'll also get that on the city page in the Merritt Herald, and let's see where that takes us, and we can have a follow-up on it at the next meeting. Does that seem like a reasonable action plan for this one?
Love it.
Very good. Okay, 5.2. Work with School District 58 to establish programs such as reading buddies. I've got a son who's in kindergarten this year, and I know that a lot of the times the reading buddies do come from family members and others, and that's largely how the programs have been structured. That's not to say that there might not be additional capacity as well, and so I think that taking this up with School District 58 would be, again, it's not a whole lot more than a conversation, and seeing if that's something of interest.
To one of the newly retired teachers.
I might know something about that.
You might.
So we have a program in place in the school district called one-to-one reading. And all that it requires is that the volunteers are willing to go through a criminal record check and be willing to do I think it's just a 1 hour training session, and then be willing to commit for 6 weeks. So it's not onerous. And I know it's just started again this year. I happened to be at Bench last week when they were doing their training. So it's called one-to-one reading. So if you're looking for somebody to talk to about that, Jane Kempston at the school board office might be the best person to contact.
Jane Kempston. Is that in the minutes? All right, perfect. Sounds good.
Kempston.
Great.
And she's not in charge of the program, but she's just the voice at the board office who would probably be able to point you in the right direction rather than you trying to contact all the schools individually.
And one of the things we may do too is on that same marketing that we have out is just talk about the program we just mentioned that I have forgotten already, and add the school district to that as well. Better Homes is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I think that let's have a conversation with School District 58 first to get a feel, because again, COVID environment and mixing potentially vulnerable seniors vulnerable from a different reason versus some of our most prolific carriers. They happen to do very well from resisting the effects a little bit better, but I think that I just want to have some conversations on that before we do any further marketing, but it's a good thought for sure.
Anybody else? Yeah, I was just going to say COVID could be a concern, especially for some of our seniors. It's pretty hard to do one-to-one reading and maintain social distancing, but it is something definitely to keep in mind. The majority of our volunteers for this program have been retired people who feel that they can donate their time.
Perfect. So in terms of assignments on this, I think we do need to have a call with School District 58. Your Worship, would you like staff to take that on, or would you like one of the committee members to make that call?
If the committee member is willing to do that, I'm thinking maybe over this
What
way.
call? Sorry, what call am I making to?
Thank you. Thank you,
Jane.
Janet.
Do you want me to contact Jane? Is that what you're asking me to do, Sean? I would be happy to. What am I asking exactly? How can the city promote one-to-one reading?
Is there a want or a need for additional volunteers, particularly additional senior volunteers? Because I think that's what this particular recommendation is looking for. Although if we were to put it out, we wouldn't obviously have an age stipulation on it. So,
No.
And I think that I don't mean to say no or anything like that. I'm just trying to think through the implications of this. I don't necessarily want every single opportunity for volunteerism to be something that the city is always blasting out through certain channels. I think there needs to be a mechanism for that. There needs to be, as Councillor Bangu said, whether it's a running list of volunteer opportunities or a running list of volunteers, perhaps both. And that's something that we've talked about with a few different organizations now, and there's certainly an opportunity to do that. It has worked in other communities. Stephanie Moore, who is our economic recovery advisor right now, I think she was actually instrumental in getting that up and running in Kelowna during her time there. And so it's been done, it can be done, but there's also, as you guys have said, there's challenges particularly in setting these up right now, because people might be open to volunteer opportunities generally, but just not right now, or only for a more limited subset right now, and other things. So
And maybe there's a potential to just put it out there, not necessarily looking at a database or even having them contact us, but just contact the organization to see if it's a fit. I don't think we need to be in the middle of it. I think we just need to put the message out there that there's a few options.
Yeah. Ideally, we would be allowing other people's voice, like we'll promote other people's voice and other people's message. So if it's the school district saying that they want this and they need a little bit of space to do that, that makes me feel a bit more comfortable than the city saying, hey, volunteer for this very particular thing. That way it's just their message, and we're just helping to amplify it. So.
Yeah.
Okay, 5.3. Research the feasibility of locating child minding facilities within assisted living facilities or seniors associations. And again, the goal for this one is increased interaction between aging residents and youth. I don't have a whole lot to add, Your Worship.
I don't think that would go over very well.
I have a funny feeling it may not either. I saw this recommendation on there, and particularly when they're saying interaction between aging residents and youth, and they're calling it child minding facilities. Those are totally different categories to me. A youth, like 12 to 18, okay, maybe I can get that, but that's not child minding. That's a different category entirely. That's, but not to say that there isn't something there. I think social science has shown a lot of benefits to intergenerational discussions and opportunities, and whether that's volunteerism among youth groups at elderly care facilities and things like that. I can think of lots of experiences I had growing up where some of my best experiences were playing bingo with some of the residents at various homes and hearing about some of their life experiences that just blew my mind. And it helps change your perspectives. It can be really formative for the youth, and it can be quite energizing for the seniors. And so I don't want to make light of what I think programs like this can do, only that I think the way this particular recommendation was crafted is slightly misguided. That's my personal opinion, and I'll back
I agree with
up.
you, and I think a lot of these groups get together anyways. I mean, daycares take their kids in for Christmas concerts or whatever. Love to Dance takes their pupils or whatever you want to call them to senior homes to present their craft as well. Janet?
Oh, so I wasn't part of the group that crafted this, but I know that there are programs where daycares exist within seniors' facilities, and then they're not interacting all day long, but there are times in the day when there is that interaction. And they say, like you say, there have been social studies around that say that it benefits both the littles and the seniors. So I'm just wondering if that's where that came from. I don't know how you promote that. I don't know that we have seniors facilities that could do that. I don't know how often the senior center gets used. I know it wasn't used at all last year, and I know they've just started again, and I don't know if there's a space in there, but
most seniors centers have activity coordinators that can actually promote some of this stuff from within. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to expand on Mayor Brown's point, in the health industry, in the senior care industry, there are professionals, and I'm sure they have come across these ideas and are implementing them. I wonder if a conversation with some of these facilities to see what they're doing, what they've done, and then look at perhaps where we might need to try and build friendships. Thank you.
I think having a career in healthcare, I think activity coordinators have to coordinate the client's needs with the rest of the population. So they are best left to determine how this works. We could jump in as a marketing source, but I don't think we would have any other potential with something like this. It's just too complicated.
I think that you would only ever dream of implementing something like this if all of the parties were enthusiastic about it. And realistically, and I mean no offense with this, but there's a finite number of facilities that might theoretically be able to take something like this on. So perhaps Gillis House wouldn't be the one that you would implement something like this at. And so you're probably looking at Senior Center, Florentine, Nicola Meadows.
But I think you're looking at Gillis. They have an activities coordinator there as well.
Maybe, I think that what I'm going to say is this. I think I might personally need to learn and to be a bit more educated on what the potential benefits of this model are, because I think perhaps I came out too strong with my initial views because maybe I'm ignorant. It's wholly possible that I just don't fully understand the potential benefits of this, and that needs to be better understood. Because even as I was going through the list, none of this makes sense to me, but it might make sense to others. What I will say, and it continues to be the case, is I think that if there's interest in this, it has to be mutual interest between that organization and some potential child care operation, whether it's a society or a for-profit business or something to that effect. And so I see a lot of these it's a facilitation role that the city would take in starting a conversation, in bringing potential partners together, but not necessarily being actively involved in the process.
I think any one of these facilities have criteria for who comes in and what they could or would do and what time the available time frame would be.
So if there is a task to be born out of it, I think that if any one of those facilities would be interested in having some type of child minding facility there, then when people approach the city for business licenses or other opportunities that are a child minding facility, we could be encouraging them to consider conversations with those individuals and work to connect them. So I think it would be conversations with each of the potential facilities that might be interested in hosting something like that would be the potential action item. I'm not saying the committee needs to do it, but that would be what you would do, I think, if we were to take another step.
Well, there's a whole other thought here where the actual daycare itself could be integrated into an assisted living facility, which
I think that's what it's
would have an awful lot of
aiming for.
potential. I don't know where to begin with that.
Well, I think
Ellen?
I think it would be up to the Interior Health whether or not they would allow that.
Yeah.
And also, would it be beneficial to go into, like the Thornton doesn't have an activities director right now, but would it be beneficial to go into their or Gillis House and just put on a bit of a information meeting for the seniors and let them know what they can volunteer in and around town? Because a lot of them I know would, if they knew the opportunity was there. But unless somebody goes in and tells them what is available, they never know. And there's a lot of them there that are perfectly capable of doing a lot of volunteer work.
Your mindset is moving in a different direction than the rest of us are saying, let's take the child to the center. You're saying, let's take the seniors out.
Well, like I said, I think it's an Interior Health decision as to whether who goes in there, right? Especially with COVID right now, but normally it would be an Interior Health decision.
Yeah. Councillor Jenkins?
Yes, thank you. Don, when a development comes forward, can we request that it be some type of multi-generational facility? If there was a senior complex development that was coming forward to the city, is that a time that we can work with Interior Health or another entity and make something happen? Do we have that ability, or is that overstepping? Thank you.
You just have some.
Thanks, Councillor Van Gu, through the chair. I think there are opportunities to negotiate certain things, but partnerships like that generally would be negotiated with BC Housing or Interior Health through that sort of funding structure rather than with a private developer. Developers generally will bring forward their project and have a vision and a sort of a pro forma cost structure for their project, and suggesting something alternate to what they're wanting to do is not out of the realm of possibility. It's very difficult, I would say. So the models that exist around nonprofit structures and BC Housing and these sorts of things, would probably be more suitable for that type of project.
Thank you.
Have we exhausted this?
Right.
24.
Facilitate opportunities for aging residents to share local knowledge, including culture, history, and traditions. And the goal with this is to encourage the transfer of knowledge and skills between aging residents and youth. To date, there haven't been any city-led knowledge transfer projects or programs. That being said, I recognize that this is something that does happen oftentimes on a more individual basis or with individual clubs or individual groups. And so I would love to hear the committee's feedback as to ways that we might be able to encourage more of this.
Thank you. So one thing that came to mind is you have your seasonal, or we with the city, we have our seasonal activities that come out. I wonder if the city would be interested in a speaker series as part of fall and winter activities. I don't know who would coordinate that or who we would approach to coordinate that. I don't know who the knowledge keepers are. I know that we have, you know, our indigenous knowledge keepers, our sick knowledge keepers and that sort of thing, but I don't know how you would pull that together. But I'm thinking that that might be a way, maybe in conjunction with the library or somewhere where there's a meeting space or
perhaps
something like
something
that.
that the museum would be able to take on as a broader project, and it could be a whole bunch of different topics and areas of interest.
And I think too, if some of these organizations put out a list of things that they'd like speakers for, you know, rather than just, hey, if you got something you want to talk about, like your stamp collection. Oh, sorry, hope I didn't offend anybody.
For my grandma, it would have been the spoons from all these different communities. But realistically, though, there's so many different cultural, historical elements that could be brought forward, even from right here from our very young community. Like, if somebody wanted to put something on in the old mining community of Middlesboro and with pictures and stories and bringing that to life, that would be fascinating. Not to mention some of our local indigenous culture and history and tradition that I think many of us, especially as we've got, you know, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation upcoming and other opportunities, to be able to learn and understand in a more meaningful way would be really gratifying. So.
And I think both in the past, both the library and the museum have done this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think everybody's seen that a lot of these types of initiatives have been on the decline since March 2020, but it's not to say that we can't be looking to bring them back in some fashion, either within the boundaries of the COVID restrictions, and right now a lot of that has to do with events and, you know, vaccine passports, and so there's going to be varying levels of comfort with that. But outside of that, maybe we're starting to ramp up and get these things planned for when that is no longer in place. So there's a couple options for the organizations that are interested in putting it together.
I worry about the world after COVID because everything has shut down, and I think it's going to be really difficult to open it back up. That's just how's it going to do?
Yes, thank you. I like the idea of working with the museum. While we were talking, an idea of a story time program came to mind where we videotape some of our locals telling their story, and we can share it on social media and perhaps create a database. As you mentioned, John, this has been done in the past, but is there any record, was there any record kept of the information shared? And maybe that's something that we can start looking at. Thank you.
To my knowledge, there isn't any formal database. I think that you'll find, whether it's articles in the Herald or the Merritt Morning Market or remnants in the museum or
the old shop used to do an awful lot. They used to have an archive.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything formally established, and I take your point that when these things happen, how do we gather them in a spot so that they can be revisited for people in the future? It's an excellent point, and any program I think should look at that. 5.5 is increased participation of aging residents on local committees. This is one one that I think council can feel relatively good about, and not just on this committee. I know when I've had the privilege of being with you in other council meetings that diversity is always one of your major considerations, and that certainly includes the elderly population, but it also includes many others. This is diversity in all of its forms, diversity of thought, and every other type as well. So I think that council is working towards this and has been successful in that regard. Comments?
Aging residents. I'd rather than talk about an intergenerational committee or something. Rather than old people. Yeah, exactly.
Well, aging residents is even more ridiculous. literally there's nobody on earth who is not aging. Like, we are all an aging resident. So this one is about the easiest recommendation to hit on planet Earth. But yeah, seniors, nobody likes to confront their mortality, but I think you've got it. 5.6, establish after-school work programs for local students to meet the needs for senior services, grocery, meal delivery, shopping assistance, and I think better at home mixed is the big kind of kicker down this path, with potential to grow into some of these services, as well as the conversations like what we've had with NDIT, although that's not going to be a daily service, but certainly those types of services as they ramp up would be a benefit.
Talking about services and the electrical and plumbing, and back to when we first started today, the thought just crossed my mind that perhaps we can put something out to contractors to say there's a need in this community for elderly to, having their light switches turn on or whatever it is. Maybe we can go beyond just trying to find, I don't know, it was a thought and I can't even complete it. But it just, contractors are the ones that stop the short-term quick fixes that seniors just can't get because they can't hire anybody to do them. They're all working for contractors. So, I don't know what I was saying, but Judy, did I spark something?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, but one thing that people don't think about is that lighting in some of these houses. I mean, something that was perfectly adequate when you had good vision is not perfectly adequate anymore. I just developed cataracts, and it's like, oh my, good lighting is the most essential thing in my room. So, and that's something that they may need, for a senior to get up there and add a new light fixture or something like that is not easy. So who could we ask to do that?
I don't know.
Maybe that would be a volunteer of retired.
We'd have to really work in the hearts of the contractors to be able to get something to do that, because they're under no obligation to do the kind of.
But what about a retired electrician, or if we could get those people involved in our project? They're retired, they've done this, they know plumbing, they know electrical, they know all kinds of stuff, and small jobs might be something that they're quite willing to volunteer with.
I just don't know how to really access it. Jen?
So if we're still talking about 5.6, my question for Amanda is, once, and you probably already have this, but if you have a list of volunteer needs, high school students are expected to complete so many volunteer hours. So have you contacted the school at all, or did you know that was a thing? They can't just volunteer, they have to volunteer under the umbrella of an organization, which I think Better at Home would be fabulous for some of those seniors or not seniors, but the kids who don't kind of know, they're not going to necessarily volunteer through their church, or they may not be the best fit for some of these organizations, but to come and, clean the sidewalk or something like that. Anyways, Amanda, I don't know if you're in touch with the school district at all.
Janet, do you know how many hours the high school student, it's a graduating program, right? 10, 11, and 12?
Oh, I think it's 100 hours.
Okay.
It's substantial, if you're volunteering.
And they have to have those credits.
They do. That's my understanding. I mean, that's why I was asking Amanda. I'm not sure if she has been in contact with the school. It would be the counselors at the high school who would know that information. So I was just wondering if there was a partnership there yet.
Thank you. So I have not been in touch with the high school in regards to volunteers for a couple of reasons, but more that we were focusing on our contracted services, and I hesitate to maybe agree that for the volunteer opportunities that we'd like to roll out as part of the program, whether the high school students would be appropriate things with the grocery program would be difficult. There'd be some challenges there. And the other volunteer program would be the friendly visits, which we addressed earlier, the friendly check-ins. So I'm not opposed to utilizing, high school students that need to obtain volunteer hours. I just would need to make sure that it's a good fit for the services that we're trying to offer our seniors and that they're services that the seniors want.
Sorry, Amanda. No, because as you were speaking, I was thinking, and somebody needs to monitor those hours. And that would probably be you. That's probably not fair.
It's tricky with volunteer programs because I think there's lots of people that would do great, and there's just some multi-layers sometimes when you start to piece things together, and challenges come up that you maybe hadn't thought of initially, like when we talked about the snow earlier this year and utilizing high school students for the snow. There are just some difficulties with liability and supervision and other things that come up that when you start piecing it together, it may not be the best fit. But still, it's an option when maybe our program expands into doing more, hopefully some day type programs and more of the opportunities where the interactions with youth and seniors to share knowledge would be, I think, an appropriate opportunity for sure at some stage.
I think that this one, out of all the ones on the list, is probably would best lend itself to a small grant application, because in particular here, I think that they're looking at work experience as opposed to just volunteer experience. And so if what this was an after-school program that maybe it was done in conjunction with the School District 58, where there was a couple of students that were selected or hired for this type of role or opportunity, and there would be some direct oversight, it would be treated as a job as opposed to volunteering. And I think that for probably relatively limited cost, you could have, instead of having 50 people doing a small amount in a scattered way, have a small number that are doing it on a more dedicated work experience basis, and have some form of direct oversight. So maybe that's something that we could look at potentially grant applications for, because I think everybody sees where that would provide some ready benefits, obviously for the seniors and getting those things done, for the youth in actually building some work experience and employment experience there, on top of the intergenerational components that we've already discussed some of the benefits of. So I think that this could be really positive for community building, and maybe the best option is to look closely at this as being a potential grant project as opportunities come up. That'd be how I'd be leaning towards structuring it, but I'll defer to the group as to what you think might make the most sense.
Well, and I think the market kind of adjusts, and it did recently just adjust itself with COVID. All sorts of new little businesses that popped up with grocery delivery, with meal planning, with meal delivery, with phone-in orders, and I'm not so sure that we could really do a whole lot with it, but a grant is, you still need somebody to supervise it.
Yeah, ideally this would be done in conjunction with the school district. If they're not able or willing to take that on, I'm going to agree that I think it's going to be pretty difficult, because I don't see, once again, I don't really see a role for the city in this initiative other than providing some type of facilitation in order to get it together, but we don't have the capacity, and unless this is another organization that's going to take it on, that's just not something that we're going to be able to do. So I think that if it was some type of funded program where there was an after school or a teacher that was ultimately providing oversight to this, and it was built into the curriculum and maybe there was credits for it, or it would be a longer conversation than just let's make this happen, unless it was an entrepreneurial aim of one of those students or a group of students. So.
Thank you. It just came to mind when the NVIT representatives were here that they had mentioned culinary as also an opportunity. And just from working in my role, I noticed that there is definite need for meal services for seniors. And maybe this is another avenue that we could look at in terms of involving NVIT and developing sort of work hours for those students that are in those programs, because there is a shortage of meal preparation and delivery within the city.
On Wheels anymore?
There's no Meals on Wheels in America.
Used to.
Yeah.
Used to be. There are a few restaurants and things that did meal preps for seniors. I know Mom tried all sorts of the programs, but she disliked every single one of them because they tended to just give food, a whole lot of potatoes and kind of whatever. We need somebody with a.
I think oftentimes it comes up as being a cost function, because whether you're talking Good Food or HelloFresh or Chef's Kitchen, there's lots of places where they'll deliver things that are. So you can have things that require some preparation, but they're not cheap. And I think that that's the bigger issue, is when you're talking about doing these things versus doing these things on a fixed income, they eat a pretty good portion of that fixed income if you want to be running those. So.
Mary's Catering, the program that she was running, was partially subsidized by members of the community as well to help reduce those costs. So it might, and I know there was someone that has taken over that kind of catering business last summer when Mary moved. So so costs could be addressed if working alongside a business that maybe is interested in providing something like that within the community. Otherwise, maybe there's other. I know there are some restaurants that do provide meal prep and delivery, and then there's always Better Meals, which is the frozen delivery service out of, I think, Burnaby. So it's just there's limited choice within town.
And then you throw in some of the food allergies or requirements for some of their disease and ailments, and it's not that simple. There has to be some kind of a dietitian involved in some of this stuff if they're looking at seniors. So where are we with this one? Just has anyone heard it's an absolute requirement now? Are there people? I know before COVID, these were written. Since COVID, we've had all sorts of delivery services. Yeah.
So I'm going to address this to Amanda, if that's all right. So some of these things that are under 5.6 that we have for students, we have needs for them. I know I've done grocery pickup for a few people, but is this a need that we have now that you would need volunteers for now, and never mind the work program for teens? Like, I'm just shocked that there's no more Meals on Wheels. My mother and I delivered Meals on Wheels for 25 years, I'm sure. And then we were told that Interior Health had taken it over. And now I hear it is no more. So I'm very sad about that, because I'm sad now that I've lost a volunteering opportunity. And I'm also sad that that's no longer a service. Sorry, so I asked you a question and then I talked.
Sorry, Jen, is it that you're just wondering if it's something Better at Home would work at developing, or is it more or less like, yeah, so the meal prep and delivery isn't something that's within our services. At least it's not on the agenda to try and develop that here at the moment. Again, there are some there's 85 better homes, I think, within BC, and I think there are a handful that, because of need and the host organization are able to provide that. It's not currently on our agenda to develop, so it would be, that would be sort of outside what we would do. Certainly the grocery pickup is again, something that we'd like to roll out, and as one of our volunteer run services. So hopefully if we're able to maybe attract some more volunteers with the city's help, that would get that program up and rolling. And I'm hopeful that so that could look a bit different. It could look like a senior going with the volunteer to do the shopping, or it could be just purely a delivery type program. So I know it's very successful and well subscribed program in Kamloops, and I'm sure that once it's up and running,
it'll be. So the volunteers who volunteer for you, for Better at Home, do they need to do criminal records checks? Like, so maybe we need to know kind of what requirements volunteers need in order to be part of that. Can you address that?
Certainly. So it's very basic requirements in that, yes, a criminal record check would be mandatory, and probably some form of transportation and insurance if you were driving a participant anywhere. You'd have to have that kind of coverage, but the basic form is just basic information with the criminal record check to be done.
So I don't know where we are with that one.
I don't think that there have been any conclusive action items out of this, Your Worship. The only thing that I've made note of is that we keep this in mind in case there was a grant opportunity to fund something on this. But as it has morphed in away from the student component, as Jenna talked about, to just the need for grocery services in particular, I think that there's that we've heard that that's something that Better Home is looking to roll out as there's more volunteers and others available. I think that's my synopsis for this. 5.7 is declare National Seniors Day as a municipal and community celebratory day with planned events. Council has historically proclaimed this day, but there hasn't been, I would say, community fanfare along with it, with events and other things. So it hasn't been one of our oft planned days.
Maybe this is a day we could put in some kind of cultural session or something. Maybe we could have the Seniors Association work on something like this.
Yeah, I think that if we were to, or even if council were to set aside some form of budget and then put the committee and the Seniors Association together on this, I think that we would be surprised at what they might be able to come up with. Of course, when I say that, I'm not talking about for this October 1st.
No. We're almost there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put a big asterisk on that, 2022. But I think that, and this is something that council has talked about before, is that oftentimes that there are willing participants and willing parties to do this, but they don't always want to go through the backbreaking, painstaking fundraising process in order to gather the funds and resources to put these types of community events on. And I think that originally that's what the Grant and Aid program is set up to address. And so maybe what we can do is, if there is a specific need or a specific want of council, instead of waiting for just people or organizations to come to us, say, we would like to do this and we will give you a grant and aid to put it on, so we can be a little bit more proactive, if that's something that council wants.
Well, it's certainly something that will move the events in the city and get people out on a specific day to even recognize the day.
So is that something you would like us to bring forward? Because this is certainly one of the items, but I know I've heard you say things like this in relation to events generally. Perhaps when we come to our next grant and aid budget sessions, we can explore the option of having some funds set aside for approaching other organizations for specific days or events or items that council is hoping to see come to fruition.
I like that idea.
Okay. Then last is
I think the last time council talked about this, we asked for you to reduce that budget. Now I'm coming along and saying, oh, it's great, yeah, let's increase that budget. Hopefully that works with council.
I think that grant and aid is, of course, it has been a little bit of a beach ball, but I think the world's also changed drastically, and I think that it's been used for a wide variety of things historically, but I've heard over and over again that as soon as opportunity allows, people want to get together. They want to have events. They want to have fun programming, and I think that...
And that's the purpose of the grant and aid.
That's right. Really dialing that in and keeping the focus on those things as opposed to maybe, small infrastructure projects for some of these other organizations. Not to say that those aren't important, but perhaps they could be funded through other mechanisms. Then last is support the creation of a community garden in the central business district. Council has talked about this as a theoretical idea, recognizing that we don't have a whole lot of land in the downtown right now, and if this were to come up, it would be land dependent, but there might be really small opportunities as part of parklets or other types of initiatives. So.
Vertical gardens, we don't have to have horizontal gardens, have some vertical gardens and do something completely different. But also we do have a little tract of land off Cleesby, I think, along the railroad track that was initially set aside for a community garden on the, I don't know what side.
You're talking as part of the West Merritt Active Transportation Path project. I think that was when you'd seen the potential for the community garden.
Could we squeeze in gardens at the edge of it?
The answer is yes. It's not. I wouldn't say that's probably. Might be the very outskirts of the central business of the downtown.
Just outside.
Yeah, just outside.
Okay.
So it doesn't quite hit the aim, but it's a community garden, and I think that is a focus. But
land around the library.
It has come up a few times.
So the library is TNR each.
The parcel, I think, bordering it is what you were referring to. Is that correct, Judy? Bordering them, yeah. So no matter what, we would be looking at some form of land being required for that, and at the current moment we don't have that. So again, I actually think this is a really good item. The only thing I would disagree with on the characterization here is that it was a short-term item, because again, I'm not sure. You need to have land acquisition, and the minute you say that, it's not necessarily short-term. It would be a medium to longer-term item.
And one of the partners that's recommended is the Schweckham Community Health Services. So I don't know what they were thinking of when this first.
I think it was because there was a potential for the Community Food Action Initiative grant for Aboriginal communities, and so the idea was that they would be able to acquire funds to do this through this grant. And I think that, again, we have to remember this was at a point of time in 2017 when there were particular opportunities available, but that's my loose understanding for why that was the potential community partner, because there was a particular opportunity at the time. And I actually don't even know if that grant application ever got made. Would have been under the previous council, so I don't know if you recall, Your Worship.
But I do know that we were looking at a number of different community gardens. And we had room at the CPO office, and that's kind of a community garden downtown.
Yep.
So that could be expanded. That could be, I think, that's Marlene's baby, so I'm not gonna touch that. But she does work on that on an annual basis. I know that. But I'd love to see some vertical gardens or even advertising that we're looking at enabling it somehow.
I think that you've got a bunch of different ideas, and the theme really is, again, you can see the goal for this was increased interaction between aging residents and youth. So again, I think that it's identifying this as a key point for community, in a sense of community, is bringing people of all ages and abilities together, and that a community garden, like other opportunities on here, is a way to do that, while also advancing an important issue like food security. And so I think that it's a fantastic idea. I just know it's not one that's immediately actionable with our current resources.
So that's it for number 5.
Okay.
And we're looking at 3:30.
Correct. Can I ask Linda for just a quick review of action items, just to make sure that we're all on the same page for what we've got coming out of this, Your Worship?
Good idea.
Thank you. So the action items are for 5.1. The city will put together an advertisement to get the word out that we are looking for volunteers for Better at Home, so we'll support Better at Homes that way. For item 5.2, Jenna is going to contact the school board and ask if they want us to market the what's the program called?
One-to-one reading.
One-to-one reading, if they wish for the city to market that through our social media. If they want any assistance with recruiting volunteers for that program. 5.3, there is no action from the committee. That's the child landing facilities, other than if there is any opportunities or if anybody comes and asks about such a thing, then we would of course encourage it. 5.4 is sharing knowledge. We can, for that one, we can contact the city or the library and encourage them to coordinate a speaker series or to create a database and videotape locals who are sharing their stories.
I think in particular, staff will have a conversation. My apologies for the individual who came and presented to council about 8 months ago, the new museum curator that they have there. What was
Cameron
it?
Bridge?
Yeah, thank you very much. And so we've had a couple of conversations with them on different initiatives, and so perhaps we can suggest this is something that would be beneficial to encourage a wide variety of topics, or a speaker series, see if they have any interest in doing that. So I think that's one specific, a bit more specific action item that we can follow up on. Is that of use to the committee?
Yeah, and I don't know about the staff time at the Civic Center, because I know they do an awful lot of these kind of coordinating things, and we talked about the seasonal aspects of that being incorporated into something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
It
that
could be available.
absolutely. There's an opportunity for it. I think that it's just the coordination of it. Ideally, it would be done through another organization, given the vast array of different topics that might be covered. So, not saying it couldn't happen, but I at least want to follow up and see if there's a museum or another organization willing to take that on.
For 5.5, that would be kind of increased participation on committees. I think we've already established that we were doing that, we have done that, so there was no action item that came out of that one. 5.6, after work, or after school work programs, so we will ask our grant coordinator if there is any grant application opportunities, and to keep his eye out for anything that comes up there. For National Seniors Day, which was item 5.7, the action is to bring forward to council for consideration during the next grant, to discuss if they wish to bring forward during the next grant in each budget session. We will have, sorry, let me try that again. At the next budget in aid, or grant in age budget section, the council will explore the option to approach other organizations to develop programs for specific events, and then just to putting funds aside for that purpose. And then 5.8, the community garden. So staff will explore or will ask if they're, I guess we would contact the TNRD to explore if the land around the library could be used for the community, for a community garden.
I don't think we established that, did we? I think we said.
It isn't the TNRD land. I mean, not to say that they don't, but the land that the library on is TNRD land, but the neighboring parcel isn't TNRD. One is.
They're privately held.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And I suppose that's something we could do too, is we can actually, we do a lot of things, but we could go to private individuals and ask if they're willing to have a garden set up for their property if they're not doing anything with it, if they have no plans to sell it or build on it or whatever.
There's communities that have been successful with that.
Can we mandate it?
Nope.
By law, empty land, it must be put to use.
There's been communities that have been successful with initiatives like that. The only potential downside for the landowner is that the community becomes invested and reliant on that resource, and so when they do want to do something with it, it often meets more opposition as a result. So not to say that that isn't a reason to go about it, but that tends to be the only consideration with saying, can we use your vacant parcel for something? So
maybe you could give them a tax break.
Well, there's so many ways to get it done. There's density bonusing. That's part of that.
yeah. Don was just saying that there is density bonusing initiatives as well, that if you put in those types of amenities, you're allowed increased density in your building. So we do support those initiatives through other ways.
Yeah.
And as those start to get triggered in our downtown, you may see more things like vertical gardens, etc.
That'd be nice. Well, I don't have anything else on the agenda. Does anyone have anything to? Move on to talk about the snow removal?
Can you please turn on
Oh, you got it?
You
Yeah,
wanted
it's on.
to ask about the snow removal program.
Right, I was going to ask Amanda. Thank you for reminding me, Susan.
Yeah, so a quick update. We have around 16 seniors at the moment that are interested in being part of the snow removal program. That list is growing quickly. Every time a participant contacts me in relation to yard maintenance or housekeeping or any other service they're looking for, I will ask them if snow removal is on their mind and if they'd like to add that as a service, and generally they always say yes. So we have around 16 right now. We are looking at adding an additional contractor so that we have a backup, because we do foresee that there are going to be, it's going to be quite well subscribed service over the coming weeks. So yeah, that's pretty much our update. Good.
These are the people that are wanting the service, not providing, like not the shovelers, these are the shovelees, 16 people?
Yes, yeah, so we,
Okay.
we have one contractor that at the moment we're looking at hiring a second, and yeah, the participants, so the numbers I was speaking of were the people interested in receiving the service, yeah. And that varies from some would like their driveway cleared, or some just want a pathway and their sidewalks completed and don't need their drive. So there is a snow removal agreement, or let's say a form to be completed when someone lets me know they're interested. I usually try and make a visit and explain the service and provide them with that information. I've been talked with Linda previously. Although the service is basically going to be fully funded from the grant, from the funds received from the city this year, I would still, when a new participant contacts me, would still be completing a better home application just like any other year, and that would also include asking for details of their annual income. That's because moving forward, we can't guarantee that this service is going to be fully paid for the senior for an undetermined amount of time. So I would like the seniors just to be aware that this is a service that normally would be subsidized and based on income. So in coming years, it's not a shock that there's a shortfall to be paid, possibly in year 2 or 3. So it is a requirement to be a participant of the program to provide that income verification. Yeah, if there's any questions, just
Linda? I can further add to that I have been working with Megan, who's our new communications coordinator, and we're going to be putting out advertising in the newspaper and on social media starting October 4th. We've got the application form that's going to be available on our website here at the City Hall as well. And in the news media release that we put out, we have highlighted that it is a pilot program for this year. Applications are going to be yearly, so we would like people, because people's needs change each year, so the application process is going to be yearly from the city's perspective. And that it is a pilot program, and so the criteria has been laid out for the 2 different streams, because there are 2 different streams for this program. While everybody would receive the service, they would either receive it through the city or through Better at Home, and there's just 2 different avenues for that.
And the avenues are whether you're just not a senior, but still in need of help. Is that where the city steps in?
There's the disabled stream. So if you are disabled and you own your own home and you are under 65 years of age and you're not able to shovel your own sidewalk or driveway and such and that your needs, then the city would provide that service.
So you have to own your own home?
That's the requirement that we do have. Mary's that you have received the homeowner's grant for disability services. That's the threshold that we.
The logic, and this is pretty common, Your Worship, but the logic is that it's the landlord's responsibility to maintain that, and if that service is needed, that it would be worked out with the owner of the property as well. And so if the owner of property hasn't made arrangements to do that, then they need to make arrangements to do that. So.
Okay. I haven't thought of that aspect. But so we're not trying to limit the availability. We're saying it is somebody else's responsibility.
That's through the stream for the disabled and through the city, and then through Better at Home. Better at Home, they have various criteria. One of them is not limiting people to owning their own home, if I'm correct in that. So it's all seniors. So there's no limit if you're over 65. And then
yeah, so you don't need to be a homeowner for the seniors. One thing I had mentioned to Linda as well, the criteria is that we ask that there isn't someone sort of able-bodied within that senior's household. So if they have their adult son living with them, they would be expected to be the ones assisting that. So that's another question of our application about who lives in the household.
Okay. Sean.
One funding question, just to make sure I understand it and that the funds are going to go as far as possible. So through the Better at Home program, of course, you run the sliding scale for subsidy based on income. And so let's say somebody's at the 50-50 range. For this year, is it still being 50% covered by Better at Home, and then it's just the last 50% that's coming from the grant? Is that correct? The city side?
Yeah, we are, that's my understanding. I do have a meeting tomorrow with our management to discuss the account side of things. Okay. The initial discussions are that so if the service costs $40 and they are at a 50% subsidy, then there's sort of 2 pots of money, and half would come from the United Way pot, and the other half would be from the city's fund. And that would cover their total amount of their costs.
Perfect.
So there'd be no shortfall, essentially, for anyone this year, regardless of their subsidy level.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. We have
I just have one question. I see in the notes from July meeting, which I missed, that the Chamber of Commerce was being encouraged to organize a convention for senior service providers. Who would I contact about making or getting on board with that?
Oh, gosh, the chamber is on the turn you over to Sean, he knows it better than I do.
I can circulate an email. That's Ryan Wuth is the the chair of the chamber currently, and so the only caveat that I have is I think they have fairly limited capacity right now, so I don't know if they're going to take that on, but I can absolutely provide that contact information for a conversation.
Thank you.
We're hoping to help them become more of an active, have an active role in the community, and they're struggling right now. Thank you. Linda?
One thing I can add to that as well is that I've noticed that the Nicola Valley Community Futures is holding a not-for-profit fair on October 2nd.
That's canceled.
Oh, it's been canceled? Oh, okay.
October 2nd, where are they holding that?
I've just been advised, I just had an update, but it's been canceled, so. Sorry about that. That was a flyer that was out in the community there, and I guess it's been canceled now.
Yeah, it's hard with COVID. As long as we continue with COVID, we're having cancellations all over the place, but okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 29th, and I assume it's 2 o'clock again.
That's correct.
So that is all I have, unless anybody has anything else to add or ask, or doesn't look like I'm seeing anything. So, thank you. Meeting is